Who, me? Oh, nothing. Just putting out a brand new episode of the Fireside Tattoo Podcast with my buddy Kurt Jacobsen. Oh, here's a picture of Kurt and me from the Paradise Tattoo Gathering last year. See? It's a good one. Oh, and this is my niece Mia. She's a cutie, huh? Look at that expression. Do you have an hour or two? Because I can get my photo albums. They're just right here in the living room. Give me 1 second. I have a ton of pictures. Hey, welcome to the Fireside. My name is Jake. So happy to have you here with me. You thought I was going to go get photo albums, didn't you? You were about to turn this thing off. So today I actually do have my friend and awesome tattooer Kurt Jacobsen on the show, and we are continuing kind of an idea, a concept, a conversation that I introduced with Tim O'Connor a couple of months back on apprenticeships and being a good mentor. What makes a good apprenticeship? What makes you a good mentor? What makes you useful to an apprentice? You know, we all have this idea, or at least the vast majority of tattooers have this idea that a traditional apprenticeship is the best way to train an upcoming tattoo artist, as opposed to like a tattoo school or something like that. But the question that I have and the issue that I have with that is that at least in the schools, there are some type of curriculum, whereas in a traditional apprenticeship, they're all over the place. Mine was terrible. I'm sure yours was terrible. And I don't know of any consistent kind of structure from one apprenticeship to the next. So I thought I would reach out to a handful of people who I know have executed some successful apprenticeships and that are good mentors, and kind of pick their brains and get their ideas and tease out the things that they're doing in an effort to help you become a better mentor whenever you start to take on apprentices, or maybe you have an apprentice right now and just need a little guidance on how to best train them. And before we get started, I did want to introduce the Tattoo Apprentices Toolkit. That is a brand new bundle that I have put together that I think is most useful for beginning tattooers, either artists who are trying to build a portfolio to get into tattooing, to get into a shop, or existing apprentices. It would also be great if you are a mentor. It's a great tool to get for your apprentices to help supplement their apprenticeship with you. So I'll leave a link to that somewhere around here so that you can check that out. If you don't want to spend any money, if you don't want to share any of your dollars with me, I understand. You can also sign up for our free Tattoo Tips Tuesday newsletter, and you will get little nuggets of information every single Tuesday that will hopefully help you become a better tattooer. Finally, if you're not someone who is into courses or things like that, if you're not going to go through modules and turn in assignments, you can check out our Inside Fireside Tattoo Club. We do a lot of fun things every week in the Tattoo Club, like drawing nights, Mindset Monday meetings, technique talks where we'll bring in outside guests and have them go through their ideas and techniques and explain how they get from A to B in their tattoo design and execution processes, stuff like that. What else? I guess that's it. Let's get to the episode. I'll probably learn a decent amount because we met each other through Fireside. So I really don't. I'm sure I've heard how long you've been tattooing and how you got into it, but I don't know it. So why don't you let's roll into that first.
So I've been tattooing about 16 years total now. 13, 14 professionally, right? Did the home thing like a lot of people did, and went terribly, and figured if I wanted to keep doing it, I'd have to get an apprenticeship, and so I did, and I'm grateful for it. I'm grateful for it for a lot of reasons, and really more so than anything else, that's why I continue to kind of have that program for myself, taking apprentices and so forth. Yeah.
So okay, that's actually a pretty good start to the apprenticeship conversation, because you started tattooing before you had an apprenticeship. So
yeah.
What kind of impact did that have on you actually getting an apprenticeship?
Apprenticeships aren't really easy to get in general. So I'd really be unable to say like how much impact that had on it. I'm an honest person, so when it's discussed, I'm honest about it. I pursued an apprenticeship with one particular individual just because the business model and location exemplified like what I was looking for. So it's not like I searched through a lot of different. I just beat at that bush until I got it.
Okay, gotcha. And so that person knew that you had been tattooing on your own?
Yeah. Like anybody else, wasn't happy about it, but it was one of those things where it's like, by the time that he understood about it, he's already at least interested enough to talk to me about it. So it's like, hey, if you're telling me to stop, I mean, I'm already stopped because I'm here for a reason, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
What was your skill set like from a drawing standpoint at that point?
So I'm an untrained illustrator, so no schooling, other than like high school art and stuff like that, which is, you know, like most of us, right? I think, some went to school, but like for myself, no schooling or anything like that. But I have never not drawn, you know, in some kind of way, always doing it. I think all told, if you counted it up over the, you know, 38 years, I think I might have taken like 1 year total off of drawing altogether. Just something that I always love. I'm a control freak, so to me, an empty page is control. I can do whatever I want.
That's an interesting way to look at that. A lot of times, for people, an empty page is overwhelming.
Daunting, yeah, for sure.
Daunting.
Yeah. Got to switch it to looking at it as opportunity. Which, yes, dude, it is. It is. Like what I tell my kids, you can be anything, but you can't be everything, and so it's hard to make choices because you're eliminating things. But I don't know. For me, there's another page. You just turn it over. There's another blank page right there, man. Just another one right there. Yeah.
Yeah. What was that? So you went after one particular apprenticeship until you got it. Was it just convenience, like someone that you knew and you wanted to stick with?
No, I didn't know him. But I did research enough to know that he was, at least of a skill set that I desired. And then location wise, and like I said, business model, it was a custom shop. So I didn't want to do like really street shop ever, really. Yeah. Like walk-ins. Well, I mean, don't get me wrong. You build a business accepting whatever comes in the door, but I didn't want to work at a walk-in shop and get that's what it is. You know, I always working towards custom.
Yeah. You because you knew at that point you wanted to do custom pieces, like not that you had any like it had more to do with that or more to do with the idea that you thought a street shop might be less skilled tattooers, less educated clientele?
No. Nothing other than the fact that my goal was ultimately to be able to provide clients with a better version of what they wanted, right? And for myself, if I didn't pursue that in a custom shop or trying to always work on that, then I was likely to not improve as an artist. Like I would just pigeonhole myself to something that I could function well at, and then that's just it. And I didn't want to do that.
It's interesting at that point in time. So you said 16 years. How many years did you say?
It was like 14 years ago. Yeah,
14
years ago professionally.
That you were thinking about the type of shop that you were getting into. I'm trying to put myself in the mind of an apprentice hopeful or someone like me. Whenever I started, it was like, sure, there were ideal shops that I would have loved to have gotten into, but I was just willing to take a spot wherever there was a spot. And I think a lot of times beginning tattooers are looking for, it's like, I don't care if I'm playing for the Lakers or the Washington Wizards, I just want to get in the NBA, you know? But then it's like, well, you're really setting yourself up completely differently with those two schools of thought.
Like if you want to work on Honda bikes, fucking go to Honda, right? On the same note, you should probably have like a general understanding of internal combustion engines, which is what I consider to be an apprenticeship, is like your general education or your community college. And then if you want to specialize, but if you start off straight at Honda, all you're ever fucking doing is Honda.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's an interesting analogy.
Yeah. So that's like the first thing I talk about with people who are interested. I'm like, are you looking just to tattoo, or is there something specific? Because I can only provide you one thing. I can only provide you what I do. That's all I can do. So if you want to be my apprentice with my business model, then it's going to work out. If you're just looking to tattoo, it won't, because what I provide isn't like anything else necessarily. It's like, you know, you adapt to the model and it will be successful. But if you're trying to do your own thing at the same time, you're going to find a lot of difficulties because it just doesn't work, you know?
Yeah.
I mean, I can get into it, but I mean, I don't know. I don't know.
Yeah, I'm curious about that because I mean, so essentially the assumption on my end is that someone, or is that anyone who's going to mentor someone is going to mentor them in, you know, in the way that they best see fit. But do you not think that like that person, the person being mentored, the apprentice, is going to take what they take from it and go off and do their own thing anyways? Do you think that it's
They
like a
will, yeah.
specific enough regimen that you're going to like affect their career perpetually going forward?
Yes. Or at least during the time that they stay with me, which on average is I mean it's under contract, but really no artist stays with me less than about like 4 to 5 years or so, based on how
Okay.
I do my structure. If you want to stay longer, you can, right? But like the goal isn't to keep somebody forever. The goal is to give them the tools to have their own career. So I think what you're talking about, that is the goal, is like, hey, I give you a general understanding, right? A general understanding. And then when you find something that you want to, I really want to do Ferrari, man, go fucking find Ferrari and really learn how Ferrari does things. And now you understand, and then you get a little more understanding. So for me, huge difference between knowledge and understanding, understanding with practical like application. So you know something, then you practically apply it, and that builds to understanding over time. I would rather have somebody with like more understanding on fewer things when they're done with their apprenticeship and like less knowledge about things. Does that make sense? So my goal
Yeah.
isn't to teach you everything about tattooing at all. It's to give you a very, very, very simple set of like, this is a simple way to do this aspect of what we do. This is a simple way to do another aspect of what we do. Consultation, client management, your own time management, right? Marketing, building up your own thing, and then the actual mechanics of tattooing, which for me, I'm only interested in building confident mark making. Everybody makes marks differently, and like to a point, you're just gonna do your own thing anyway. You spend your whole life learning how to tattoo. I can't teach you even everything that I know because I don't know it all yet. So like just a fundamental understanding. And once you have that down on muscle memory, then it's just something you just grab. You don't think about it. And for me, that's a successful apprenticeship. When you have enough of those that you can grab, that will hit every part of our career, you know, from start to finish.
Yeah.
Yeah.
See, it's funny that's similar to the way that we've kind of built, like, you know, the Foundations or Simplify or even our tattoo club is like, it's not the way to draw Flash or the way to solve this problem. It's a way to solve this problem that I'm positive that works because it's what I do all the time. There are plenty of people that can find dozens of other ways to do it. The one thing that's interesting is you said that your apprentices are typically, did you say 3 years or 5 years? How long?
Like my people that work for me stay approximately that long, but for me, average apprenticeship is about a year.
Okay, so they're not
about a year.
obligated. They're not
No.
obligated to stay beyond a year, or they are.
No, they are for sure because it's part of the contract. So with each apprentice is going to be a slightly different arrangement depending on what they're investing up front, right? So for me, I'll take a down payment and then you're paying off your apprenticeship on the other side of your apprenticeship. I don't do it with like an exact percentage. I'm pretty reasonable about it, just as you can do it. But the whole thing is you don't start your term of contract until you finish paying it off. So the faster that you pay off your apprenticeship, the faster, if your goal is to open your own studio or go work somewhere, you know what I'm saying, then you have like your time stamp for what that can look like. Does that make sense? And then during that time period, just trying to reinvest in each other.
The biggest point of that model is, or the most important point of that model is that they have some skin in the game on the front end.
Correct. Everybody has to. Everybody has to. Yeah.
And so the difference between having to put actual cash dollars down and having to commit to work the front desk or mop the floors, do whatever, is that you can quit mopping. You can not show up for working the front desk or not show up for mopping the floors, but you have to show up for the however many dollars that it is, because that's all at once. It's funny because
I'm sorry.
No, I was going to say it's funny because when the pay for apprenticeship model first kind of came around, when I was first introduced to it, people were asking me about it. And this was probably before Fireside, where they were apprenticeships. They're like, hey, they want, $2,500 to apprentice me. I just assumed it was a scam. And it was because I didn't trust tattooers. It was because I trusted the poor person that was trying to get into tattooing a lot more than I trusted the tattooer. And of course, you look back at it after all this time, and really after seeing how popular tattooing has become over the years and how competitive apprenticeships are. It's like, well, yeah, we can't just trade scrubbing tubes for apprenticeships now, because you can opt out at any minute and my investment is already made in you. You
Yep,
can just decide something changed in your life. Your girlfriend broke up with you and you can just ditch the whole thing.
for
So
sure.
it's funny what a different mindset I had on paying for apprenticeships even 10 years ago than I do today.
Yeah. And like I don't think there's anything wrong with it either way. It's just I'm damn sure not going to give away my time for free. And like even what I do charge, it's dirt cheap for a career. You know what I'm saying? I don't know
Sure.
if you try, like I charge 8 grand for an apprenticeship. If you charge 10, 20, 30, 50, that's what a career costs. It's not unreasonable by any fucking measure. For me, 8 grand is absolutely dirt cheap. And it's like it would take me less than a week of work to make up that time for what I invest to you. You know what I'm saying? It's not reasonable by any measure. So it's not really about that. It's about like how much that costs to you to be there, you know. Like for example, a lot of people do it like cleaning and like housekeeping and stuff like that. My apprentices do not. You're there to learn tattooing, and all of your time that's spent here is spent on getting better at some of those little things, of which cleaning is not included because with the exception of obviously like breakdowns and setups and stuff like that, but like scrubbing the floors, I mean, you could make an argument for like discipline, right? And that is true, but it's unhelpful to learning anything with tattooing, and there are a lot of other ways to instill discipline, even isolation discipline. Like you're doing things by yourself, you're on your own accountability. That takes discipline to build up. Most people don't come in ready for that. It takes time. So I want you here practicing that rather than cleaning the tubes or anything like that. Most of the time people do that, like I said, so that they know you're serious. That's the equal investment part, and that might work, but for me, I'm all serious. You're here to learn tattooing, that's it.
Yeah. That
Yeah,
makes perfect sense. And if you started to mix those two, it could definitely look, get fuzzy or look like you're being taken advantage of, make someone feel like they were being taken advantage of, because it's like, well,
sure.
I'm paying for an education. If I go to community college to pay for an education, they don't make me clean the bathrooms. They just
Correct.
give me the education.
Correct. Yeah. And like I
Yeah.
said, because of that, I keep it very clear on like what the expectation is from both parties. So essentially, it might not be the most popular opinion out there, but like I'm trying in my own, like it's just my opinion, what I find works well for me, but I'm trying to make tattooing less piratey for me, you know, and a little bit more responsible, a little bit more New Balance shoes, you know, a little bit more make it work, rather than like the fun parts. Try to keep the fun parts for sure, but like stability, that is key. Like it's what I tell apprentices: a functional or good business is built on consistency. Period. If you can't do consistency, you won't be successful at any part of this job, long term anyway. You know?
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I like that idea of the isolation, like forcing them to do something, carve out their own time to finish a thing, without anyone over their shoulder, because
Constantly.
that's without a doubt the biggest struggle that any creative or artist kind of has, whether they're actually creatives or artists or whether they're just lazy people that use creativity as the reason for being lazy. The That's the thing that you'll be called out on the fastest whenever you have to
Immediately.
actually create a design for someone in advance, or you know
Yeah. Day
any
one,
number of
first
things.
3 hours are like bloodborne, and then the rest of your first like 2 months are isolation discipline. Like you said, there's no part of your job that you're not accountable to yourself. If you can't regulate or manage yourself, you can't manage your time, you can't manage your emails, you can't manage your design work, you can't manage your clients, and it becomes a big fuck all, you know?
Mhm.
Yeah, I do that right away, and it's like the amount of discipline that you get just from isolation discipline will trump a year's worth of cleaning in 1 week, you know, in 1 week for me. Like, yes, there are things in the shop that everybody should care about and be responsible, but it doesn't have to be specifically things that aren't related to tattooing. You know, for example, my apprentices have an obligation to greet every client, right? Doesn't matter doesn't matter. You have to greet them, you have to learn their name, you have to try to remember it, and you have to follow that up later. Hey Pat, how did it go today? Was so nice to meet you today, shit like that. And it's like, just paying attention to that while you're trying to complete a project throughout the day is enough mental discipline to be like, oh fuck, I have to be here, I have to be present, I have to be doing it, not just arbitrary discipline, you know?
Right.
Like the wax on, wax off shit, it works when the context is there. You're doing something nonsense, but the motions translate, right? Cleaning doesn't, to me, translate, or like answering phones or like shit like that, other than how to speak to clients. But you can get all of that just from listening, all of it just from listening. Apprentices shadow me, so you hear me talk to a client. And when it comes your turn, I'm in there with you, guiding. This is how you should guide in a consultation. This is what you're looking to do. And it might be a little different than what I'm doing, you know?
Mm-hmm.
But that's how you get like common language. If there's no common language, fuck, it's hard to talk.
Yeah. And just forcing them to talk. You know, an apprentice is probably struggling just to make eye contact with clients walking in the door, or maybe even other artists. And so making it part of their job, it's like, hey, not only do you sit over here and work on your flash sheet or whatever, we'll get to whatever the work is, but you do your work. You have to be paying attention to what's happening, and then you have to acknowledge someone without them first acknowledging you.
Right.
That's a hard thing.
You're here for them because you're a salesman, dude. I don't care what anybody else wants to say. You're a salesman, and you have to walk up and offer. You have to walk up and offer, man. That's how you build it into something more. It'll perpetuate itself over time, but it starts with you offering, dude. That's, you know, and for me, like I said, those are critical. So like on Apprentice, I don't even give a shit about anything else other than like those things. And then right after that, once we get into the actual tattooing learning, it's like you already have such a framework of what you need to be, that your mentality is already proactive. You're already disciplined in your time management, and you're already seeking what you should be doing before we even get into tattooing. And then, like I said, for me, I try to keep it as basic as possible. This might be unpopular. I know some people, whatever, but I don't train on coils anymore. I used to. And the primary reason for it for me is I'm not trying to teach you everything about tattooing. Coil tattoo machines are incredible, but there's 30 or 40 variables just on that little fucking machine. My goal in training an apprentice is to make the only variable as much as possible, because obviously there's still a lot, but as much as possible, make the only variable the artist who's working. So rotary tattoo machines that are very consistent will help you to understand what you're doing in your mark making. And if you apply coil tattoos later, then you automatically have an understanding of what's happening and how to make that work better for you. But I don't need to teach that, right? Just like I don't need to teach like island tapping method, you know, for the history of tattooing as it goes back. It's just like, this is what is generally accepted as a functional tool today. Most people getting into the industry are getting it on rotary, and there's a reason why. So when I'm taking an apprentice, I teach them on rotary, keep their variable just to them, and get everything on muscle memory later on. If you want to go explore that, right? There's people that know a shit ton more than I would ever know about coil tattoo machines. If you want to know more, then go know more, you know?
How long are they with you? If we just, not to go through your curriculum or anything, but how long before someone picks up a tattoo machine? Maybe walk me through the first 3 months or so, or 6 months, or what does it look like from bloodborne pathogens to, you know, learning to work with customers? What are they working on?
It's a core group. Again, keep it very, very simple. But the first month is just shock treatment and discipline, right? Like I said, bloodborne. Then you're watching all teardowns and setups and starting getting acclimated with cross-contamination. And then you're listening to everything that's happening in the shop around you, how to talk to clients, all that type of stuff. But you're not really like getting lessons in it. The second 2 months, so like the third, 3 months, like the second 2/3 of that are really about engaging with clients, starting to understand all of that type of stuff a little bit better, and then start to learn a lot of the common language in what we're actually doing, so that when we get to technique, it translates. Then after those 3 months are up, we start tattooing, and that's like 6 months to 8 to 9, depending on the person, of supervised tattooing, which means I'm in the room with you at every point that we're tattooing, and we're talking about everything that we're doing at all times. What we're aiming for in that is to get a handful of like strenuous concepts down so automatically that we don't think about it. After that, the last 3 months are unsupervised tattooing, which are only like our litmus test is by healed, right? So they can only submit to me if they have fresh and healed and then settled. So like you need like a grouping of pictures, and then I need to see like a pattern of repetition in repeats for that in order to graduate you. And that's it. It's pretty simple.
Huh. That's a great, there towards the end, that's great that they, by you requiring to see fresh, healed, and settled,
Correct.
That makes sure that they are seeing fresh, healed, and settled, and it forces them, right?
Yeah.
And it forces them to communicate with their clients that, hey, I need to see this to graduate my apprenticeship.
Oh, yeah.
Like, can you come back in a month? Can you come back in 6 months or whatever the time frame is?
Dude, it's the hardest thing. But like even in that, there's a lot built into my process that has like a secondary, like little helpful thing. Like what you're just talking about, when they're engaging with clients and starting to tattoo them, it's easy for a person to be like, hey, thanks for doing me the favor of giving me the practice, which is true. But you're already working on boundaries with what you're just saying. Hey, I'm not going to tattoo you unless you're going to come back in, because doing the tattoo doesn't matter to me. I have to see it healed if we don't. And so even in that, you're building on the relationship with that client. And then you're also building on like, you're being taken seriously, right? Calling authority in the room. I know what's going on here, even at the very earliest onset, because it will make everything else easier. If you don't own the room, then the client does. And every client is going to come in and claim your room, you know?
It is. Yeah.
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 So like, even
that's
in
great.
yeah.
The thing that, that I'm thinking about, just building a clientele, and what a real asset just that assignment is to building a clientele, because, like someone gets someone's 5th, 8th, 10th tattoo, first tattoo, whatever it is, that, they're like, oh, I got your 3rd tattoo that you ever did, but it's like, they like the tattoo for whatever reason, because of the experience, or maybe it was a good tattoo. Then they had to come back and, and show it a month later and show it 6 months later. Of course, by that time, they're ready for probably another tattoo. Sir. And so it's like, what an easy and what a great way to build a clientele, whether they realize that's happening or not when they're doing it.
And if I, cause you're totally right. Again, most of what I do is serving more than one thing kind of simultaneously, because much the best way to be efficient about it. But like what you're talking about is kind of the cornerstone of what I build my business on. Is you're not actually like, okay, so you're learning how to tattoo, and that shit matters, but it doesn't really matter, because what you're learning on how to do is how to stay established with people, how to give a fuck, how to care. It's really, really, really basic. But if you start that right from the ground up, it's built in within every part of their behavior. So for me, the reason to take an apprenticeship, if you're looking to get into tattooing, there's 2 huge reasons to do it. Number one, time. Everything that a mentor is going to teach you, you can learn on your own easily, but not quickly. And it will cost you every mistake. It will cost you in your reputation. I know it, because I was like that. Had a shit ton of friends that were looking to get tattooed and then suddenly weren't. Why? I don't know. Maybe it's something to do with, right? So like, that's one. And then the second is, what you're doing is you're borrowing your mentor's reputation. So I've been doing it for 14 years, and I have clients at every price point. Call them little apartments, right, on a floor building, right? So when I train somebody, they get to take these clients, because those clients don't want to pay up here, right? As they move on to bigger work, they jump up to the next group of clients that I've already established and is already there. I'm not building Kurt Jacobsen clients, I'm building the shop clients. And as I move up in price, people who are paying at this point tend to go with artists who are now at that point. So as you bring people up, their price points continue up. And in that way, an apprentice, even though you're done in a year, we continue to have conversations 4 years later. And when you're ready to go up, or I think you're ready, we're going to have talks, and you're coming up to the next one as the next person's coming up. And happens automatically. So by the time you're done with your term, if you're dedicated, it's pretty much a guaranteed career.
Yeah. I've never heard it put that way, but that's a great that's a great explanation of the value of an apprenticeship, because you're exactly right. That one of the problems these days, or problem, or whatever you want to call it, is
YouTube,
that
baby.
you can learn to tattoo.
Sure.
Used to it was a real struggle, but now you can buy a course. You know, you can watch YouTube. You can just watch Instagram Live and kind of watch what people are doing. So yeah, you're absolutely right.
And do it just as well. Like you absolutely can. It is almost a guarantee. Like I'm an autodidact, so I tend to teach myself anyways, and I'm definitely not going to understand it until I do it. Like I said, knowledge to understanding. And like I need to do it to understand it. It's just how it automatically is. So in a lot of ways, I seek to teach myself, but I have to take the long way, because that's just how learning is. You don't know anything. So like you just waste your fucking time. You just waste your time in areas that don't help until you figure out the areas that do help. And then once you dialed that in, then you got to clear through all the brush of what's helpful out of that to get the nugget that works well for you. In an apprenticeship, I've already taught enough people and had enough understanding of how people view or read information. I can tell you generally what an apprentice is going to struggle with based on their type of personality. Most people struggle with the people thing for sure, but some people struggle more with time management. Some people struggle more with communication. Some people struggle more with like boundaries is a big one. Like they'll just let the client take off of them. And from that way, without ever doing anything else, I'm already, when I'm selecting my candidate, I'm helping you by knowing what I'm looking for, you know, and how well that's going to adapt over. Yeah. So it's like, yeah, dude, finding an apprentice that's going to speak your language, or finding a mentor that's speaking the same language.
Yeah. That I was going to ask this earlier when you were talking about that kind of phase one of the apprenticeship and the time that they're kind of spending just getting familiar with the shop environment and how the interactions go and what breakdown
and their
setup
future
looks
clients.
like.
And their future clients, when they're meeting these people and doing that part of the assignment, you're meeting your fucking clients. Whether it's 2 years or 4 years down the road from now, it doesn't matter, you know.
Have you identified, and I guess we could go back even before this to when you're interviewing a potential apprentice, but maybe we could address it there first and then address the question I'm about to ask. Whenever I assume you're watching the new apprentice for the first 2 or 3 months to see kind of how they interact with other artists, with the front desk, with clients and all that. Do you know pretty quickly if they're going to work out or not? And if so, what are the things that stand out to you? And then that same question about whenever they actually come to you with a portfolio before you've hired them. If we just go to those first, like, however you want to answer it, but if you want to go to those first couple of phases, like what are you looking for? And is there anything that stands out to you? Like, I can already tell this isn't going to work.
Yes, definitely. However, I mean, with
however
one
you want to
exception,
answer that.
No, it's all good. With one exception, everybody has graduated. The one exception, like I understood that it wasn't going to work. I took them anyways. And I'll never make that decision again. So basically,
you knew it before you hired them that it wasn't
correct. And I think truly, like everybody's shocked by what it actually is, right? Because you can't be prepared for what it actually is, that level of like isolation and self-discipline until you're actually in it. So everybody gets shocked, don't get me wrong. But basically, I'm at a point where I know that you can handle it before I'm taking you on. Does that make sense? Yeah. So kind of a non-issue.
Yeah.
Like I can watch you panic the first week. Yeah. So I don't just like I interviewed nine people this year, of which 3 of them had more than one interview. I make people wait, and I make people show me that they're the right person, you know, within my own criteria, right? I make them do a hard thing that I can see is hard for them to know how they're going to accept challenges. It's not just about what you're telling me in an interview. It's, you know, basically I'm going to test every apprentice before I even take you on, you know, in not like a weird, cruel way, but like hey, if I'm like, hey, let's talk again in 3 months, in that 3 months, do this artwork. If you reach back out, I better have a link to an Instagram, or you better attach files, or you know what I'm saying? And the person who does, that's the person that I hire. That's the person that I take on.
That's a great way. So let's talk again in 3 months. The ball is now in their court. You're not reaching out in 3 months.
Every time. I guess that would probably be critical to say as well. I never seek an apprentice, period. I do everything in my possible to talk them out of apprenticing with me. As weird as that sounds, it helps to make sure that the candidate that makes it through now, I wasn't always that way. There were times where I was building my business and a little too eager, as I'm sure we all are. And you say yes when you shouldn't, or you know what, however it ends up going on. And I've made mistakes, and I'm sure that I will make plenty more. But what I have found is the harder that you make it up front, the more the right person is going to be in for you, you know, just like with your clients, man. The harder you make it for your clients, the more you're going to get what you want to do. The less clients you'll have, but the more that you're going to get what you want to do. Laser it in, you know. And I don't need an apprentice as a business. I don't need that. And just like any good sale, you can't need it. Like you can't sit there needing it, or else you're going to make decisions you shouldn't.
Yeah. So
same for the apprentice. Like if an apprentice desperately needs it, why? What's wrong with waiting a year or 2 years? I already told you this is going to take you 3 years to get like good fucking money out of it. It's going to take you 2-3 years, right? So like if this is critical for you, if you can't wait a year for me, then I'm not the right guy for you. You're not, you know what I'm saying? There's no reason to meet you at that. I don't need to sell it.
It's that idea that I think we've talked about on some of the Mindset Mondays on our club and the Inside Fireside Club is there's what's urgent and there's what's important. And rarely are those two connected in any way. You know,
almost
it's like
never, man. Almost never. If you're talking like life-threatening injuries is what you're talking about, like that's when those overlap. Almost never do they fucking overlap. Or you have a shit in your process, right? Like if you're a procrastinator, you have a deadline coming up, sure, then urgent and important can overlap. But assuming you've troubleshot your process, then yeah, you're totally right. It's they're exclusive generally. Yeah. So like, dude, that's part of that discernment. When I'm looking for an apprentice, I'm not looking for an apprentice. Does that make sense? Like I'm just consistently waiting to hear what's coming around to me, and when it's the right person, I know. And I don't know now. I know, like right now, I just started an apprentice. I made her wait just like everybody the fuck else. I also sat this past week with he was a client of mine. Fucking 11 years now he's been a client of mine. He wants an apprenticeship. So I sat down, I talked with him, and I kind of put him on deck. I was like, you're serious enough, you're a good enough candidate. Guaranteed I can't even talk to you for another year. But if you hit me up in 3 months with updated shit, I'll keep you on, you know what I'm saying, on the top of the pile. So like I potentially have the next 2 years of apprentices because that's the right person. I've known that dude for 11 years.
Shit. Does it ever make sense for you to apprentice more than one person at a time?
No. Nope.
Why is that?
So again, a lot of what my training, no matter what it is, a lot of my trying to teach or anything is about removal, right? Removal as much as possible. Take out variables, take out extra stuff. Essentially, there's going to be the language that I speak, and then there's going to be the language that the apprentice speaks. And sometimes those get like this. If you add a second person in, then you're never going to hit both people at the same time, fucking ever. So you're either going to compromise your information to try to get to both, or you're going to focus on one and fuck the other one. In my opinion, no, it's too difficult because each person, regardless of how good of a candidate they are, every person I have had to change my language and my approach to get to a little bit more of their language.
Yeah.
You know, a blend of Spanish and French, right?
Yes.
Or now French and German, right? Or, you know, whatever it is. It's like now we're Austrian or what, you know, it's impossible. Fuck, a 3-person language barrier. Oh man, no.
Yeah.
It gets too hard.
It would be similar, you know, I mean, not literally, but thinking about trying to do like group consultations or something like that.
Yeah,
Like,
dude. Great analogy. A group consultation. Fuck.
right.
Even if you had two people who both wanted rose sleeves, whatever you're saying to both of those people isn't going to jive for both of those people. It's not. Yeah, dude, that's a great, it's a great analogy. In my opinion, are there situations where that could work? Yes. Could you get that information so basic that it's essentially classroom level? Yeah, right. But again, for an apprentice, I want you to go from knowledge to understanding, and you have to be able to practically apply it, which means I need to be there with the already existing understanding to help guide you in that, and you can't, it's poof, man.
Yeah. So you try to discourage people, from apprenticing with you. You don't necessarily need an apprentice. You have your booths pretty much filled. Why would you take one at all? Like putting on the mentor's hat rather than the apprentice's hat. Like, why would you do that at all rather than just trying to find an established artist? You already have an established shop. Why wouldn't the best artist in your town just want to come tattoo with you?
So, how do I say this? The right person who is going to succeed at tattooing well over the long term is almost never like the person who's not going to want to do things for themselves. That's why you're a tattooer, right? So at a certain caliber, almost always you're going to end up wanting like your own thing, whatever that might be, even if it's just because I can't be under my parents anymore. Does that make sense? Right? You gotta go out and find your own thing. So like, I don't view an apprenticeship as a chance to collect somebody permanently, right? We have a period of time where we help each other, and then you flourish. So you have somebody else ready to go because it's a walking system. It's a walking system. You always have somebody who's ready to get on to bigger things, right? Like Jack, my very first apprentice, he's getting very into like traditional Japanese tattooing, right? My business model has nothing to do with that. I've never established anything for Japanese traditional tattoo. Now he could be here and he could build that for himself, but if he's going to build that for himself, why wouldn't he build that for himself and collect that, right? So like, everybody of quality has a ceiling to it, with the exception of some people are like, I want the responsibility, but not all the responsibility, in which case I have a second tier to my business, flooring, where an artist can join as like somebody who then trains and makes a percentage off of them. Does that make sense?
Oh, okay. Yeah.
So
can you expand on that just a little bit? Like how that works, or how it comes about? Yeah.
This is brand new to me because I'm just in development as it goes. But Emma, my artist right now, fucking phenomenal fucking artist. God, she's fucking incredible. Citron Mod, CITRON_MOD, Emma Vaughn. She's fucking phenomenal. But anyways, she's currently like watching me teach a little bit more intently now, because she ultimately wants to then teach people. So when she trains somebody, she and I will share a percentage off of that, almost as if she's part of a collective without having like two heads of house. Does that make sense? So we both make profit or shareholder benefits without having like cooks in the kitchen issues, if that makes sense. So it keeps everything moving forward in the same proper direction while allowing people to make more if they don't want to branch out towards their own.
Yeah, interesting.
Yeah.
How did you come up with that model, or is it something you've adopted from?
No, it's the same thing. It's just in terms of thinking about how, like, all right, so when I first got into training, I thought you train your people, then your people stay with you. Fuck yeah. And I didn't understand it as like a sliding, constantly moving thing. Then when I did start to understand it as that, it started to feel like how people talk about it, where it's like you're just training your competition and they're going to leave. And like, I build up this, clientele, and then they leave with that artist and I don't have any clientele left. And from a very like, whatever, none of that really matters. So I kind of came to an understanding of like, all of that happens and it's okay to happen. So rather than fighting it, find a way to work with the current. And so that's what I'm doing, is I'm just trying to work with the current rather than against it. I don't need to dam up the river, right? Just get a fucking wheel. Just get a wheel, man. That's it.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then find the right people.
I do like, and it's certainly that can only help someone feel like they have some ownership. If the apprentices, I mean, not that would keep, Emma from, if she decided to open her own place, bringing the people who started with her on with her. I mean, I could see that.
And she should be okay, like for me, the only reason that's not okay is like, if I'm feeling bitter and jealous about it, like communicating, you know what I'm saying? Like like an exodus like that is like, hey, that's hurt feelings if it's never being communicated about. But if that's her goal, we are talking about that. Every artist in my shop, we know like what their goals are in general. And I know whether or not somebody's going to stay with me short term, medium term, or long term. And long term doesn't mean forever. Emma has told me 1,000,001 times that she wants to stay with me forever. I don't want to believe that, because I want to believe she wants more. So like, she fits for my system right now. She'll work that for a while. And if she gets to a point where she decides she wants to open her thing, I'm going to do that with hugs and fucking high fives, no matter how many of the clients or apprentices she brings with her.
Yeah.
Because she earned it all. You know what I'm saying? In my relationship, I borrowed that reputation. If you earned it enough to keep it, then fuck yeah, that's a win, dude. I'll go earn the next.
Yeah. It's funny you talk about Emma saying she wants to stay with you, and we always just assume that people are looking for the same thing that we were looking for when we did what we did, when you rented your spot or whatever. And the client that I tattooed all day today has spent about 20 years with the same company, and he was a pretty high level executive, and today was his first day of unemployment. He was laid off along with about 100 other executives right around Christmas. And so he was like, kind of like, it was an interesting day. I've tattooed him a long time, so we know each other well, but it was an interesting day. And then normally when I work on him, he's, working. He works all day while I work on him. And he had nothing to do today. And he was like, but he got a good severance. He got, everything is fine, financially. And he made the comment, he was like, I wish I was someone that just like had this entrepreneurial spirit, that knew what I wanted to do with this severance and with my free time and all this. He's like, but I really would just love to put it in the bank and find the exact role that I was in before and just pick right back up where I left off. And I was like, well, there you go. It takes all types,
It does,
so
man.
That might be Emma,
And then you're like, oh, fuck that, right? And again, what you're going to pay me, that's for damn sure. But I invested in you first, because I essentially pay you way more money than what you're paying me in the early part. And then it comes back the other direction. And once we've gotten back to equitable, then we can talk what happens. And there isn't a wrong answer as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah. Well, as we're around an hour or so and close to it, as we kind of sum it up, if you could, because when I reached out to you to do this, my idea was that I'd like to do 4 or 5 episodes where we focus on what makes a great apprenticeship. Like, what's it take to be a good mentor? And obviously there's not a single answer. And what's it take to be a great apprentice, to be a willing and great apprentice? If you could, a point or two on each of those, like what you really, if there are a couple of things that really stand out to you when someone comes to the door looking for an apprenticeship, obviously you're making them wait chunks of time. So if there are characteristics that you look for during those chunks of time, and then if you can kind of distill down the basic idea of what makes someone a good mentor, because I think if nothing else, that's the part that's the most, I don't want to say ignored. I think it's just not, it just like zips past people. No one thinks about it. Like what makes someone a really great mentor? We think about having great teachers, great educators, great interviewers. You think about someone like Howard Stern or a David Letterman or whatever, like people who are really good at that, like pulling the best out of someone else. But we never apply it that much to what we do. So can you kind of address those two things?
Yeah, sure. I sure can, man.
Okay.
For both, the easy answer is caring, right? It's really easy. Good mentee gives a fuck. Good mentor gives a fuck. But what makes a great mentor, more so than anything else, is the team that the mentor surrounds themselves with, which is what's going to do the pulling that you just talked about. So if the environment that the mentor is cultivating isn't synonymous with what they're teaching, then it just doesn't feel, look, or work well. So what makes a great mentor, as stupid as it sounds, walking rather than talking. So whatever they're teaching you, as long as it's following what they're actually doing, then I would say that's as great as you could expect to get.
Yeah.
I think. Yeah. As far as a great mentee, so like I said, worlds apart from knowledge to understanding, and anybody who is trying to learn something is extremely eager to show how much they know or not show how much they don't know. And it tends to very easily make the other half completely, you can't even get there, because it doesn't matter how much you already know. Like, we're trying to get to understanding. So what makes a great mentee is somebody who's, I guess, understanding of that, right? Not afraid to look stupid.
Yeah. Great. Yeah. Great answer. I think that's probably, I think that just drives right down to the point and gets a lot of the other fluff out of the way. If you're just not afraid to, look stupid, there's something really off-putting about someone who's trying to convince you all that they know about something that they don't know.
And the more you're out there now, like I don't, so that,
Great answers. Yeah. I love both those. Yeah,
for sure.
Yeah, that's funny. That's one of those things that you do, and not just, as someone like an apprentice trying to get or an apprentice hopeful trying to get an apprenticeship, but this issue of like being more focused on your response to something than on the thing that you're listening to. It's like it's a human problem that's so hard to get past.
Yeah. And it is tough to get past, man. It is, even for myself to this day, like being aware of it and like all that. It doesn't matter, right? If I'm embarrassed, you get that blood rush. You can feel it, man. You can feel it, and it's literally like almost a wall off. So like the more okay you can get with feeling, stupid is like you'll learn faster. That's for sure. That's for damn sure. Yeah.
Where so KJ Tattoo on Instagram, what's the best way for people to find your work, find the shop, and find all that stuff?
Probably shop website, which is going to be unbreakableinkco.com. That's INKCO, unbreakable INKCO. Instagram, same, Unbreakable Ink Co. or KJ Tattoo. But I answer all emails go through the shop anyways, so just visit the website. And you can see all my artists there as well. And they are all fucking phenomenal, all phenomenal for sure.
Yeah, for sure. And I didn't mention the same. I might have said something in the intro, which I haven't recorded yet, but for those of you who aren't a part of the Inside Fireside Tattoo Club, Kurt's one of the great, one of our great secret weapons, our assets. He shows up for everything and is always so willing to help everybody. Always has. I love that you're so honest with people. It's not ever fluff. It's always right to the point of whatever someone needs to hear or needs to know, or at least your thought on what they might need to hear or know, which is that's what we're there for. So man, I appreciate it, and thanks. Thanks for taking the time to do this. I know asking people to talk about something like apprenticeships or mentorships it's something I probably couldn't have even asked people about 6 or 7 years ago on the show. And it's funny that now it's just like, man, like maybe we could find like 5 people to talk about that. That would be great.
So
let's see if we do.
Well, sharing an opinion, man, you're automatically going to find people who don't like it. So, it's careful, but like you said, we're moving fear too. So, it's a fucking honor for me, man. It's kind of a bucket list thing. So I'm fucking honored. I'm honored, Jake. Thank you.
Hey, thanks so much for watching. I hope you got some value out of that. Thank you to Kurt for taking the time. I think that he had a lot of great ideas to share, and I'm going to continue to do these types of episodes for a little while. I would like to get 6 or 8 of these kind of put together and then make a best of and kind of tease out some of what I think are the best ideas from these great mentors. So if you know of someone that we should interview as a great mentor, someone that maybe mentored you or maybe it's you, feel free to reach out to info@firesidetattoo.com and shoot us their information, and maybe we'll get them on the show, and they can share their big tattoo brains with us and you as well. Thank you, as always, for supporting what we do, and I'll catch you the next time.